know, when people get into something like a hobby or whatever, they get into it really heavily. In coffee, I think a lot of people get into it, and not only are they buying brewers, but they're also buying a lot of coffee. And eventually you start to hoard coffee, and you get all this coffee, and then sometimes you run out of coffee, or sometimes you just get coffee that just you bought and you just didn't drink it, and you're like, oh, it's kind of old now. We're going to look at what you can do with that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here at the onocoffee channel. I'm your host. And if you're just joining us for the very first time, we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern. And thanks for coming over here. I had a little bit of an issue. Mom and Naomi knows that we had the other stream started. And actually, there was a technical issue on my end. And it started and I just couldn't tie into it. And then had to start a new one. So this is the new one. How's it going? Hope you're doing well today. Kent, how are you? Good to see you. So yesterday's live gave me this idea of, or just kind of made me think, like, what do we do? Like, we got this old coffee, right? This is the 12-year-old Fratello coffee. And I'm like, what do people do with this? Like, what do we all do with this? Like, sometimes you may end up with coffee that's pretty old. Well, what to do with it? So I was thinking, how can we extend the life of our coffee, or at least, not throw it away? Like, the worst thing I think is to throw it away, just to get rid of it completely. I mean, you could give it to friends. A lot of good friends out there. They're always happy to get coffee, especially the less discerning friends, right? You can give them, like, your old coffee that you think is busted, but they're going to think it's really great. You just don't tell them it's busted. Just be like, hey, I thought you'd enjoy this. But if you wanted to keep it and consume it and at least feel better about yourself, this is what we're going to do. We're going to see how we can make it into something that hopefully will be pretty good. Like I said, we've got this coffee here. This is our coffee from yesterday, the Fratello Cigar Blend coffee, 12 years old. And if you remember, it's got, very strong peanut shell, aromas and this weird plum dried fruit kind of character, some heavy bitterness. It's not a terrible coffee. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not much of anything, right? You're just kind of like, well, this is old coffee. It's not very good. It's not horribly offensive, but it's still not exactly what you want. But, what a shame it would be just to toss this in the bin. So I thought, let's do some testing here and see if we can use this and maybe not resurrect it, but at least see if we can give it some extra. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this coffee and we're going to just measure a little bit. What we're going to do is first, we're going to taste the coffees to, we've got this coffee and then we've got our house blend. We're just going to use that as a test batch. So let me get our scale here. We've got our scale. And what we're going to do first, we're going to taste the coffees to see how we like them. And you don't have to do this. Like, you can totally do this on the fly. But I thought we'd do this a little bit more, quote unquote, scientific, because it would just be, I think it's an interesting practice to try to cultivate. Okay, 13.1, that's good. Now I've got this 13 grams. We're gonna do a little cupping. We're gonna do a little tasting of the coffees just to see. And I've got the grinder here. I'm gonna leave it on this medium setting we had yesterday. It's somewhat fun. Maybe we'll go a little bit coarser, 2 clicks coarser. And then I've got our 9-ounce cupping cup here. So 13 grams to 9 ounces. There we go. So there's our first one. We'll look at that in a moment. And then now we're going to get our house coffee here. Ooh, that smells lovely. Now, this coffee is not exactly fresh. It's probably about a month old now. Oops, not too much. Good. We're going to use the same brew ratio because we want to, be apples to apples. I'm going to grind this up. My friend Matt had one of these, brand new in a box, sold it to a guy. The guy took it home, found out that it was all mucked up. returned it to him, and he sent me a video just before we started. It's like there's a hole. It's like rattling on the inside. It's like the augers are colliding. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but not very reassuring. Okay, let's get our coffee in here. This is our house coffee. Oh, that smells good. Smells nice. All right. Okay, now we've got those two. Put that aside. Let's get. Okay, so this is the Fratello. This is the current. Actually, this is the Espresso 99. We're just using that as a fill-in for today. And the water is boiling. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our timer. Here's my little timer, my Bear timer. I bought a whole bunch of these like in 2015, and we started using these at the shop. So I've got I had stacks of them. But these are nice, simple timers, 100 yen or something, like $1 a piece. All right, so we're going to pour in here. Pour heavy, right? Pour heavy to make sure we go. Oh, gosh, we're not doing a very good job. Come right to the edge. I like to pour with a lot of turbulence. Probably a little bit more would be good. So the idea here is that we're going to taste these coffees, and then we're going to use this tasting vessels as our means to combine coffees in ratios, right? We're going to do a little bit of ratioing, and it doesn't have to be precise. You could be as precise as you want. Like you get down to the, I don't know, 1,000th of a gram if you really want to, but you don't necessarily need to. It's just really kind of like more of an exercise. And then you can actually just do this on the fly with just the beans, put the beans together in whatever quantity. But this way, we're going to be able to try to play with different mixtures to see, like, if we wanted to consume all of this old coffee, we're going to mix it in with new fresher coffee to try to balance out what's not so great about the old coffee, right? You can even do this with Folgers, right? If you really want to, like if you somehow ended up with Folgers, and you're like, I really find Folgers to be detestable and I cannot drink it, but I don't want to throw it away, then you could, do something like this. I don't know if it's worth it, but Malcolm's with us. What's going on, man? The fellow grinder is back. I'm starting a betting pool. How long? It's not hopeful. It's not hopeful. Actually, a friend of mine, Miguel Meza, we were chatting the other day. He's like, "Yeah, I just got the Time More." He's like, and I was like, "You know what, man? A lot of the viewers are like, the Time More is really great." And I was like, "Maybe I should get one of those." He's like, "Yeah, it's really awesome." I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "All right." So, all right, we're waiting for 4 minutes. We're about halfway through. So as there's a whole protocol with this cupping thing for the 4 minutes. We wait 4 minutes for the steep. If you want, you can do all of that where you're like, and this is not so pleasant. That's cleaner, sweeter on the nose. But you don't have to do any of those things. We're not really trying to evaluate the coffee. We've already tasted the coffees. We know the coffees. By this point, you've already tried the coffees, so you know everything about them. You don't need to evaluate, or you don't need to evaluate them as much as you would. So we're just waiting for the time to go, and then we're going to clean it up and then do some tasting and then some blending. And then once we're finished with all that, we're going to figure out a blend and then make the blend and then brew it and see, did we get something that's worth drinking, or should we just, at the end of the day, throw the bag away? Because perhaps it is unsalvageable. There's always that possibility it's unsalvageable, right? If you end up, especially if you end up with some commercial coffees, like some commercial coffees are truly grotesque, right? That's probably the best way to put it. Like some of the samples that I've seen at different origin coffee organizations, because typically most coffee producing nations has a governmental agency that oversees the exportation of coffees. And I've been to a lot of them, like the Federación in Colombia, the ASEN in Nicaragua, Icafe in Honduras, and the old UCDA. It's now all under the Department of Agriculture, but the old UCDA at Uganda. I did some cuppings there where they had like true commercial grade coffees, and it's like, whoa, there is some pretty rough characteristics in these coffees. All right, we're at 4 minutes now. So, typically you're going to do the break. Now, this is one way for me to show you if you ever go to a cupping situation. When we talk about doing the break, I always tell you, like, this is how you do, right? But you don't really get the perspective. And so this is our opportunity to show you the perspective that you would have when you do a cupping. Let me just get an extra rinse cup here. I'm going to put a rinse cup here, not because we necessarily need it, just because old habits die hard. But as you can see here, if you ever get to a cupping, you're going to take your spoon and see now I'm not holding it vertically, I'm holding it horizontally, and I'm going to get my spoon in there and push back. So this moment, you want your nose like really deep into it, right? Your nose should be super deep when you're doing this, right? You're doing this, right? What I'm showing here is how to look like you know what you're doing if you ever go to a cupping, so that even if you don't know what you're doing, just act like you know and do this, and everyone will think like, oh, that guy must be a pro, right? That person. We can't. So when you do that and you start to speak about, so here's the thing. So if you can do these techniques very well, and do it with authority, like you're confident in your ability. So practice, if you want to do this, practice at home and just be like, and then you just speak with the air of confidence. You could say pretty much anything, and people will be like, oh yeah, okay. Like you could be like, I had this feeling that it was anesthesia kumquats. I go, yeah, right? If you just want to game it. Okay, so here we go. Let's look here. When you're doing this, you want to get your spoon about halfway down like that. And then now you breathe, right? So that little opening there is when any kind of aromatic that is underneath the cap will be released and into your nostrils, right? And if you end up touching your nose into the coffee bed, that's all right. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Again, we're going to do one more time. Put it in halfway and then like that. Nice. All right, good. And then now if you're going to clean it, so let's say this is another thing, right? This is where the true pros live and die. This is it right here. This is the technique. You're going to take your 2 spoons. Now, these are really heavily bowled cupping spoons. These are like true, proper cupping spoons. But this, I think, works better with flatter bowled soup spoons, like those cheap stainless steel soup spoons. I love those. These, not so much for this purpose. So what you want to do is you're going to take your spoons, you're going to put them together, but not seated, right? You're not seating them. You're just kind of together, right? And you're going to come down. You kind of get as far back into the cup, and you want to, insert the spoons about halfway or so. And now you're going to come around and scoop it all out. Scoop it out like that. Oh, a little bit off. And then rinse. Always rinse, right? And don't put it into that cup. I did that wrong. So much for being a professional. I'm supposed to have a separate cup. We're not too worried about contamination today. We're not worried about. Now, again, same thing. See, so one sweep is better, but maybe I'm concentrating doing it. Let me go a little bit faster this time without too much thinking. I'm just gonna put it in there and then swoop around and then scoop it out. There's always a little bit, I guess. There's always a little bit. My spoon technique may be off today. That's what it is. All right, let's get this back out of there. So you do these things, and man, people will think you are like coffee professional. Okay, good. Now we got the coffee. It's been 8 minutes. This is about the time when I will get into it. Like I like to start fairly early. Like I like it when it's hot and I can take the heat. Some people can't, and you need to be aware of that because you don't want to scald your palate. So, if you want to take a taste, take a little bit, and then see if it's too hot. And I mean, just a little bit, like what I did there. I mean, I'm just taking just a hair, because you don't know how we don't know the temperature. So you think that, and yeah, for me that's okay. Some people that may be still too hot. Most times in most cuppings, the common practice is to wait 10 minutes. If I'm all by myself, I'm starting as soon as I can. But if I'm in a more of a group setting, we'll wait 10 minutes before we start to taste the coffee. All right, now what we're going to do is we're just going to take tastings of the coffees to see what we think. Right? Let me maybe I'll have my reaction here. The nice thing about doing this here is that I can like relax on my. So when you're doing a cupping in a professional setting, like no matter the taste, like you want to maintain neutrality, right? Your disposition should be very neutral. Sipping that now, my disposition does not want to be neutral. Like I want to be like a little bit like, ugh, right? But because you're in a group setting, you're being neutral, and we do it normally in silence so that your reactions do not influence the impressions of anyone else, right? So that's really the main reason, because typically a lot of times you're cupping in group sessions. So, but it's also good practice if you're doing it by yourself, if you're planning on being in group sessions, because the more if you do it at home and you're all like or ooh, then you might do that in the real setting, and then then people are like, all right, so let's taste some more. Let's taste some more. Again, not horrible, but just not anything special. Nothing special. It's got a little bit more chocolatey notes. All right, so that's kind of, you taste that, and okay, you like some characters. Maybe you don't like them. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't think these two are necessarily simpatico. Like, I don't. Just tasting it now, I think to myself, I don't know if these coffees are going to be that interesting together. But it may perhaps the example here is that it's not about necessarily them being interesting together, but more about utilizing the old so it's not wasted, right? So we're just trying to bolster. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our cup here, a glass, and now we're going to mix. So let me taste one more taste here. Okay. Oh gosh, definitely like unpleasant. So let's say 1-to-1 ratio. So we're going to take 1 spoonful and then 1 spoonful. And that's going to give us a 50-50 blend for our coffee. When you're in a cupping situation, spitting is not unusual. It's actually very much recommended. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Actually, I think in a 50-50 ratio, let's try that one more time. Let's just double check. We'll double check. In a roughly 50-50 ratio, that's a little bit more. There's a bit of the characters of what do you call it? There's a bit of characters of the old coffee in that, but it's not overwhelming. Like I think that if you wanted to utilize this old coffee, like in this specific case, as quickly as possible, it could make a survivable coffee experience, right? Let me ask, is the old coffee better than Folgers? I would think so. Yes, for sure. But you know what? Let's just double check on that, right? We can do a quick test because I got some Folgers right here. This is Folgers. Best if used by February 19th, 2024. So this is made February 2023. And let me just do a quick, we'll do a quick setup of this full jare. I used to have another spoon back here, but I guess not. We're going to do the same ratio. 13 grams. Oh, man. Just smelling it is, it's definitely rough. Like, it's rough. Oh, man. God. Here, you can see how dark it is. We get the light. I mean, it's darker. It's not horrible, but it's darker, right? But yeah, you can smell the difference. Ooh. Oh, God. There's that industrial kind of. Okay, now we're going to take our water and we're going to add that into the mix. Add that into the mix. Let me slide this over. Swook. 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 Okay, there it is. I don't know how many people have new Folgers there, Naomi, but I thought, you know what? We got these. I bought these Folgers because I wanted to do a video about them a while back, and I just never got around to. Oh, man. So let's go back to our ratio. Now let's try a different ratio. We're going to try. Maybe let's do 25%. 25% of the old coffee. So we're going to do 1 scoop, and then 3 scoops here. 1, 2, 3. Wow, there's a. God, that's really. Holy moly, that is terrible. God, it smells like feces. Like there's a feces kind of aromatic that's. Wow, that is just. Yeah, like it's really like a pungent. Wow, good God, that's. If I was all alone with my friends talking about this, I'd be like, it's terrible. Oh, gosh. Okay, so this is the 25% mixture. No, just to reiterate, I'm spitting out now because it's bad, just because I just don't want to have too much caffeine, because eventually we're going to make a cup here. Okay, that's better. Right, a lot more, of course, of the espresso 99 is apparent versus this. But let's try the other way around. So if we go 3 here, we'll do 75% now. And then 25% of this. This will allow, if this works out, this will allow us to consume a lot. Nobody says, no, don't drink it. It's not worth it. It's probably not. Of course, a lot of the characteristics of this older coffee is showing through, especially that like weird, like dried plum kind of character to it. I think that if I was to do it, I think the 50-50 would be the way to go. That way, it's a better balance of the newer coffee versus the old, and you get to use as much new coffee as you possibly can. All right, where are we with this? Let's look at this. Now we've got our full jare. Oh, we don't even need to do any of that. We just need to clean it off and get rid of it, right? So let coffee, just clean it off. So here's another example, right? Just get in there, dig it in, and then sweep it around. Well, there's a lot of coffee in here. Now, here's something you might run into. And as you can see here, there are, oh my gosh. Whoa, that is, man, I can't believe people drink this. Like, this is brutal. Like, it is. I went to, in the food service world, you have to take these certification classes for what we call ServSafe, which is an NSF, National Science Foundation, National Sanitary Foundation certification. And the last time we did ours, we were at this facility, and that what they had was Folgers. And man, I remember that was just god awful, like god awful. And I think this is going to be god awful. But like I was saying, if you look here, and I know it's a little bit hard to see, but in this case, you can maybe kind of see it. There's a little bit of floaters. Wow, it's really kind of dark here. Like you can kind of see it. There's a little bit of floaters. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes they just float and you just can't get rid of them. So you just got to watch out for that, because sometimes you're going to have it. You're going to have little bits of coffee in there. So let us have a taste of our Folgare. Now, one thing that, here's my thing is, I always believe that if you're going to learn coffee, like when we're training baristas, we always have them taste the coffees they make, the shots of espresso, the drinks. And they're like, well, I don't know if it's going to be good. I said, well, the only way for you to know good is to know what's not so good. So everything you should taste, even the Folgers. Okay, the way it smells is horrific, right? It's just like, oh God. Like, just, you, disgusting. You're like, oh God, it smells too. In the mouth, it is certainly not the wonderful exploration of coffee that we are used to. It is something that is, it's not even dirty. It's very, gosh, it's not pleasant. I mean, it's defect, very heavy defect. Maybe hints of diesel and maybe a little bit of like rubber. Yeah, definitely rubber. A lot of those defects come because, when you're buying coffee on a large scale, or you'll typically go to, let's say, an organization like the UCDA, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, or to ICAFE, the Instituto Hondureño de Cafés, right? So of coffees. And so you'll go to them and you'll be like, hey, I need coffees. I need to fill a contract. I need like 4 containers of coffees. And where we look in specialty coffee, we look at attributes of the coffees, right? We look for unique and interesting characteristics that are ideal for what we're doing. We want to celebrate the coffee. When you're in a large-scale commercial operation, you're looking at it from a different way. What you're looking for now is not necessarily attributes, but you're looking for acceptable number of defects to fulfill your contract, right? Because you're trying to buy larger scales of coffee at lower prices. And while you hear the prices of coffee from the C market in New York City, coffee is truly, that's just the commodity level. It's actually traded, depending on the quality to that C grade. Sometimes it's plus, sometimes it's minus, right? Depending. And a lot of times Folgers and this kind of thing is going to go for a lower cost product, something that's at C or below, typically below, because this definitely has tar, rubber, diesel kind of notes to it. So this indicates to me that there's a lot of defects in the coffee. And, these are things that are acceptable. I remember many years ago when I was really new to the business, we were in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I was hanging out with this guy who is a Dutch trader. He's a Dutch guy, but he's a coffee trader. And, I'm just, we're talking about coffee. I was like, they should always sell the best coffee. He's like, well, And like I know I've told you guys this before, but he was very patient with me. He was very like, well, actually, it's more of like every coffee has a place. Every coffee needs to go somewhere, right? From the very highest quality to even the lowest quality. It needs to go somewhere. It needs to be utilized so it's not wasted. And a lot of times, places like Folgers or other organizations will buy those coffees to use in their product. And it's, if you're comparing these side by side, whoa, man, it's super rough. It's super rough. So I wouldn't necessarily dismiss Folgers as far as it's a product that needs to be consumed by a certain amount of, a certain segment of the market is going to look for this. Not everybody's going to want to buy $15 a bag coffee. They're going to want to buy something like this, something that's more affordable, something that's going to give them what they need in that moment. May not be the most enjoyable thing, but if it's something they're used to, then I'm not one to necessarily poo-poo on that, right? Okay, so let's take our cups. We're going to put them aside. We're going to start the brew now. We're going to try to make this blend. We're going to do 50-50 because I think that's a nice balance of blend. And this blend is not necessarily about, or this approach is not necessarily about trying to make the best coffee, right? That's not what we're intentionally. And this is something to think about as you think about your own coffees, right? Is your intention to get the highest performing flavor experience out of it? Or do you have other needs that need to be met, right? If we're talking about the highest flavor experience, this is not going to be the way you want to go. But in this case, what we're looking to do is let's say we've got extra coffee at home we haven't used. It needs to be utilized because you spent all this money for this coffee and it just kind of sat around and like missed its window of opportunity. How do you utilize it so you're not losing all your money? So that's really what this is about. You're trying to make some kind of blend that's going to have a pleasant enough flavor to you, right? So, and that's kind of why we do this little tasting here, because it's really more about what you think is preferable because you're the one going to be drinking, right? So try this at home if you want to. Now we're going to do our blend. Let me heat the water back up. And then we're going to brew it all up here. What are we looking for? We're looking for our scale. And we're looking for our coffee. And our little cuppy. So like I said, we're going to do 50-50 blend on this. And our parameters, of course, are to utilize the coffee, right? We want to utilize the coffee as quickly as possible because you know what? It's not just a question of like we want to use the coffee so we don't waste it all or we don't waste our money on it, but also if we think about it from a pleasure perspective, let's say that our pleasure of coffee is diminished by going this route. Then in that case, we want our pain to last as short as possible. So we want to utilize it as quickly as we can without necessarily totally hating our coffee experience, right? So we got 12 grams in there. Whoops, a little bit too much there. All right, that's a good enough. 25 grams, a little bit more ratio than we had spec'd out, but I think it'll be all right. It'll be perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Okay, now we're going to grind. And we're going to keep this 7 grind now. Oh, no, we're going to go to 7. We'll go to 7. That was 6-2. Now we're going to go to 7. Oh, I better. So far, so good. That actually has the grind smell actually is a bit more pleasant. Those two mixing together makes for a little bit more pleasant aroma or fragrance. Okay, let's grab our brewer, Kogu, and Hario filters. These are the O2 filters from Japan. I never really learned all the nuances about the filters. Like I hear people talk about how the different filters are made in different parts of the world, and some are better than the others. I was like, oh, that sounds so complex for me to worry about. Okay, now we're going to add this in here. Okay, good. Okay, our water is boily. So now we're going to get our scale. I mean, not our scale, but our... Oh, I did not do that again, did I? Goodness. This thing sucks. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to add this. 379. We know that already that this, we normally are shooting right around 360 for 26.1, 14.5. So it's a little bit heavy. So we're going to write to what? We're going to go to 360 because we're going to account for the weight of our filter. Let's get our water here fresh off the boil. And now we will begin. Oh, I forgot to do that. I forgot to level it out, so I'm trying to beat it down with the water. We're going to go to 85 grams to start. Now we're rolling. All right, now we're rolling. So exciting, right? So exciting. Oh, there we go. Need a little bit more. It looks like we're starting off fairly well as far as brew speed, resistance. You know, one thing I was thinking, if you have ideas or topics that you'd like me to cover or questions that you might have about coffee, let me know. We can put them in a future episode and really get into it. I kind of would like to know what you are interested in exploring. Kent says, always excited to watch live. Man, I don't know if you are being serious or punking me on this, because I feel like that could go both ways, and I feel like, because I also feel that, you know, like, this cannot be the most exciting thing in the world to watch. Like I tell you what, even though I've been involved with the competitions for most of my career, like, I as a spectator sport, I think it's god awful, just god awful, unless you're initiated into it and you're interested in it. I mean, just to see it is like god awful. Like I'm deep into it and I don't watch it because I'm just like, I just can't watch it. It's just painful to watch. Because, you know, for me, I still like to look things as a consumer, as someone that is consuming entertainment for entertainment value. And I just don't think coffee competitions are very entertaining to watch, and especially if you're in the audience, right? Ken says, I'm a weird coffee. All right, right on, man. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. But I do think that there's some interesting, you know, perspective. That's why I made sure that when we were, you know, putting together the live stream stuff, I wanted to have this overhead cam. So there's some kind of perspective, right? We're trying to make it as interesting as visually as possible. Like, if only this Gen 2 had a longer, what do you call it? Oh, not that one. We're going to go to this one. Had a longer power cable, I would be able to pull it underneath the camera, but the cable is just too short. So this one's not so good because, you know, it's got so much like fog buildup. So it's like, or steam buildup. So it's like, could be a lot better. All right, we're slowing down now. This is where I start to think, like, we're 253, 318, 319. This is where I start to think that, oh, you know, for the next brew, I'd want to make it coarser, just a little more coarser. Where it's 7, I would go a little bit more coarse. Now, of course, then by the next time we go to this, if we're using the 99, that's gonna the blend is gonna have an impact, right? Because density and dryness and all that is different between the two somewhat. So we'll have to reevaluate that. But typically, as I'm brewing, I'm always thinking about like, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? What do I need to adjust? And so that the next brew hopefully will be better. 4 minutes now, 286. So we're pretty slow. We're very slow, actually. And we haven't. It's not like we had a point where we ran dry. It's just a lot of resistance being generated by the coffee being too fine. And it's strange because when I took apart the grinder before yesterday's episode to clear it out, I kept everything oriented the same way that I took it apart. Right, I made sure that I marked where the blades were in relation to the whole housing and where the rotator was in relation to that, and I put it back together the same way, and it seems that it got finer in adjustment. So very, very irritating. All right, we're almost there. 5 minutes now. We're going to be some pretty heavy brewed coffee. We're going to go 360, right? 360. Oops. So used to stopping at 350. Okay, 360. Very nice. Very nice. Also, if you're interested in more strange coffee talk, we do a little bit of coffee talk on the Coffee and Cigars live stream Thursday nights, 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Ono Live channel. It's the third channel that I have. That one's strictly just a channel for that live stream. So we do coffee and then we do cigars for a couple hours and just kind of have mindless banter. If you like this mindless banter, but if you don't, then no worries. It is a completely different kind of scenario than the coffee Q&A. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. Look at that. It's almost finished. So exciting. Look at that. It's just falling down. So very nice. All right. Looks like we're done. 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes. Many years ago, there was a song, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. On. I don't know if any of you guys remember that one, but that was the jam back in my youth, right? That was the one. I'm actually working on a video series that I would like to explore. I've been enjoying videos by a YouTuber named Rick Beato. He does music as well as some videos by Mary Spender. And I like how they talk about coffee. I like how they talk about music and songs. And I have this idea we're going to be looking at music that I like and how it may not relate to coffee at all. I don't know if it relates to coffee at all, but I'm just going to use coffee as a vessel for that. So I'm working on that idea now. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's pour this out here. And here's our blend. This is it, our blend. Now, one thing we had a blend, right? By us, while the last time when we're mixing together, I'm making sure it's homogenous. But by putting the beans together, grinding them together, and then brewing them together, the homogenization of the two flavors is already been done, right? So we don't need to worry about doing any of that. Oh, smell. Okay, so as expected, it's got that balance. All right. There's still some of that dry, fruity plum, kind of dry fruit plum, but it's not. It's got a good balance. Actually, that's a good balance. That would be all right. That would be worthwhile. I mean, it's not fabulous, right? This coffee isn't very nice on its own, especially as espresso. Yeah, that's what I like. That's what I like. This is not to that level, right? There is a diminished character to it because of the blend. But again, if you wanted to consume your coffee that's old, this would be a way to do it. This is not unpleasant. It's actually very palatable and very pleasant to drink. Yeah, it works. It works. But gosh, that aroma coming off of this Folgers. Holy God. Like it is really like you ever go camping and there's like the latrine that is like a dug hole? Like it really does have that kind of like sharp character on the nose. You're like, and I mean, it's like a good 18 inches away from me, right? And it's just kind of wafting. It's just like, my God, Mamma Mia. It's really quite. All right. Well, I guess that's all I have for you today. One way to utilize old coffee in case you happen to have old coffee. So hope that helps. Let me know what you think about whatever you think about coffee and maybe things that you'd like for us to explore in future videos. Put them in the comments down below. And otherwise, have a great one. Back again tomorrow. And see you next time.